All right, I'm Trevor Crane. You are watching Greatness Quest on the Whatever It Takes Network, and every week I'm bringing you someone absolutely extraordinary, and this week is Jeffrey Slater. Say hi, Jeff.
Hello, Trevor, and everyone listening.
Yes, absolutely, and this is not just a normal white background with Jeffrey Slater there. You are in what country, sir?
I'm in Australia today. It's a nice, beautiful place. Got the beach, sun. It's a beautiful place here.
And quoting Jim Carrey in Dumb and Dumber, "Let's put another shrimp on the barbie."
Yes, that's very Australian. I wouldn't try that out here, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm excited to bring you Jeff. We have known each other for about 6 years, and thank you, my friend, for being here. I was talking to you. Here's who Jeff is to me. To me, he is known as a CEO whisperer. Like, this guy's been so successful. He retired by the age of 30, and he now does everything that he does. He does strictly with his passion and desire to help change the world. He's a multimillionaire and very successful philanthropist and is known as a humanitarian. But he's actually been consulting with some of the largest leaders you would meet around the world, world leaders as well. So this is the man, Jeffrey Slater. If you haven't heard of him, you now have. So,
thanks, Trevor. I'm just a human being doing the best I can with the choices that I got, and I guess you could say I'm a professional human. and I think human beings all over the world, we have the potential to really make our mark in the world as long as we're living true to ourselves. And so it's an honor to be here. It's an honor to be on this call with you. So thanks.
Absolutely, my friend. And for everybody watching, this guy's not just a stick in the mud. When I went out to see him in Australia, we went surfing, and Jeff surfs, almost every day. He lives right on the water, this beautiful coast that you can just go out there, and he's just one of the most caring, loving, spiritual guys you'd ever meet. And, let me ask you my question about, consciousness and successful enterprises, because I know that's a focus for, what you're doing now in the world. So what the heck does that mean?
Sure. That's a good question. I'm glad you asked, because we're entering a new era for business today. The old paradigms are starting to break apart. Now, what does that mean? I see when I work with CEOs that a lot of times CEOs or people starting businesses, they start it just to make money. And that's all good, and they want to go make a lot of money and everything, and profits are important, but they start sacrificing their values in order to make more money. So what I've developed is basically the 5 elements of what makes a conscious enterprise. And now, what's the difference between an enterprise and a business? An enterprise is like a bold move. So a bold move to take a stake in the ground to make a difference. So if you're listening to this, the fact that you're listening to Trevor and these things means that you are really out there to make a bold move. So you're building an enterprise, not a business. A business is just focused on profits. Let's build enterprises that make real impact. So the 5 elements, like the 5 elements of nature, are in building a conscious enterprise are purpose. Like, what's the heart? The people, taking care of the people, the planet, prosperity, and perseverance. So those 5 elements: purpose, people, planet, prosperity, and perseverance. Now, we only have so much time. I wish I had more time to go into it.
Right.
But, just a simple fact, like people, for example, if you don't take care of people, there was I made a note here, there was a consulting company that researched 360,000 employees in 18 different countries. And they discovered that engaged employees increase their profits by 90%. And if you have disengaged employees, you'll cut your profits by 30%. Now, what does that mean? That's just one segment of the 5 elements, people. Are your people engaged? Are you engaged in what you do? If you're just after making money, you will not be engaged for long. It'll be a slow burning flame. It'll be a flame that burns and it's done. Versus you bring that engagement level where it's aligned with your values. You'll be a long burning fire that sustains time and be able to handle the ups and downs of any business cycle.
I love it, man. And I've got another friend of mine that I interviewed, and his whole focus is around people and that engaged employee. So I absolutely agree. Let me ask you a question though. You start with number one being purpose. Do you have any? I mean, I love giving an introduction that's so awesome, like you're a superhero. However, how about times you failed? Like, give me something where maybe you didn't follow this pattern, or a client you had that would, like, purpose wasn't first, or what would you have to share?
I'll share a story because I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. I remember my father. He was extremely perseverant, and he was always working, and he was trying to get his first company off the ground. And he struggled for quite some time, but he was very perseverant. And what began to happen was we struggled financially, where my grandmother in Hawaii was bringing over like mangoes to feed the family, and my mom's credit cards were totally maxed. And it was challenging to be a kid where money was not very abundant, and mom and dad were having challenges and things like that. Now we weren't like living in the slums of India or anything like that. That's another level. I'm talking, but just trying to make ends meet. And my dad, he came to me and he said, I'm just going to stick with it. I'm going to stay persistent. And sooner or later, his first company was actually he started getting it off the ground, and it was acquired by a publicly traded company. And I watched the difference between struggling financially to having enough to make choices. And I started to see that when people have money, they have more choices.
All right, Jeff, I need to interrupt you there. I want to hear more about your family, but people are watching Greatness Quest. I'm Trevor Crane, you're Jeffrey Slater, and we'll see you back in just a minute. You're watching Greatness Quest on the Whatever It Takes Network. Welcome back. You're watching Greatness Quest. I'm Trevor Crane. We're here with Jeffrey Slater, all the way from across the ocean in Australia. And he's actually from the States, but he's just living abroad. And he was just sharing the story about how when he grew up and his grandma had to help the family get by selling mangoes. And Jeff, I interrupted you right where you were talking about there's a difference between not having money, which I know what that's about, that sucks, and when your dad finally got successful and bring me back and tie this all up.
So my grandmother was bringing over mangoes to the house because all my mom's credit cards were maxed, and she was basically providing food for the family. Mm-hmm. And that's, in the Hawaiian culture, that's what it's about, is you look after your family. And my father's company, he was a struggling entrepreneur, and then with perseverance, his company was acquired, and then his company was acquired and then they went public, and that's when things changed for the family. I saw the difference between growing up in a family with very little money to having money, and I discovered that money equals units of choice. Every piece of dollar, every money that's made gives more choices. And, it's nice to be able to have choices in your life. I feel inherently that we as human beings, we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And so it's our birthright to have this experience of abundance. And when you have more money, you get more of an experience to be able to express yourself and make a difference with people. Not that you can't make a difference with people without money. It just seems to make things a little simpler.
Well, when I was in Hawaii, and I lived there for a short period of time, I saw some really poor people living on the beach, but they felt like they were living in paradise. Like so they were homeless, but they seemed relatively happy, what I saw, because they were living on the beach. And my buddy, a real good friend of mine, is Hawaiian, and he was telling me that's one of the hardest parts of he feels of being successful as an entrepreneur, because he looks around him and everybody's just like, hey man, let's go out to the beach this weekend, and it's just a laid back environment. I mean, how long did you live in Hawaii?
I lived there about 11 years. I'll share that there's a point that being wealthy on the inside, being able to be okay, living on the beach, enjoying yourself, that's wealth. And then there's external wealth. So distinguishing both of those, I would rather be wealthy inside and poor outside than wealthy outside and poor inside. So I feel like the next era of business is build a business but also be wealthy on the inside. So often entrepreneurs, they become miserable on the inside because they work too hard, doing something they don't like to do. you got to have that balance. So for myself, sometimes I will go to Bali, and when I'm not with my partner, but I'll literally go to Bali and stay at a $50 a night shack on the beach for a week, and usually we stay in really nice places. But I will do this by myself to a bare minimum, and I notice that as long as I have good food and there's surf outside, and as long as there's a bed to sleep on and not too many cockroaches, I can be happy. It didn't used to always be that way.
I think I did that once. I was in Indonesia, I went to Bali, and then I stayed in some hut on the beach so we could go surfing. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I did the same thing. I had to do it so I could know that I had joy in just the minimal things, which is good food, clean water, a roof over my head, and a beach and some surf and good people. Wealth is about being able to have that internally and know you can be happy, and then why not go express yourself and make more money and help more people if you can make more money.
Well, and that's a good place to be homeless, is on the beach near all that stuff. So, I asked you a question, Jeff, about your challenges, and you told me a story about how you grew up and about how you experienced your family's challenges and the transition. And I think most people would agree that having more is better than having less. So I think that's easy. But, what are some challenges that you had? What was a defining moment in your life that really made you successful? Because I know that you haven't always... not everything always worked out great for you.
No. All you need is one or two big ones at work. Defining moment. I was sitting down with a man who was very experienced and a very intelligent businessman, and I had a lot of respect for him. And I said, I'm going to go out and I'm going to speak all over the world, and I'm going to share my knowledge of what I've learned from having made a lot of money, lost a lot of money, and made more money again, and get through those cycles. And he said to me, you should wait till you're a little older. And I was only 27 or 28 at the time. And you should wait till you're a little more experienced before you go out and share it with the world. I said, no, I'm going to be on the stages with Tony, with T.R. Becker, with DeMartini, with Branson. I'm going to go on that big tour, and I'm going to go influence and share my message to the world about how you can do what you love and get paid. And he goes, well, you should wait a little longer. And I had a lot of respect for this guy. And I took note of what he said. I entertained the thought, and I went out and did it anyway. And it worked. This man is such a kind man. This is when you know you got, because he was coming from heart. He was coming from a good place, telling me giving me his advice.
Right.
And I said to him, and he called me later on after I had done all that and worked with millions of people, and he said, I want to let you know I owe you an apology. I was wrong. You did it. And I learned a lot. Never underestimate.
He said he learned a lot.
He learned a lot. You never underestimate what someone can do. If they can imagine it, they can do it. He goes, that was my lesson. And what I learned from him was being humble and admitting when you were not wrong, but when being humble and being open. And he admitted that he was wrong. It worked. But he wasn't. There's not a right or wrong. I'm angry. He's angry. It's very much. In fact, I respect him even more now, and I would go to him for advice as well. But that was a huge turning point when somebody that I really respected said, "Don't do it," and I did it anyway with my own.
Why'd you do it anyway? What gave you the right? Who gave you permission to do it anyway? Because most people are told by their mom, their dad, someone that they respect, "I'm not going to do it." And they don't do it. They listen. Why were you so stupid that you didn't listen?
I don't need permission from anybody to do what I love, except for myself. Nobody gives me permission to do what I love.
Where'd you get that? Did you get that from your dad, or?
I found that through. It's always been there for me. That's it. If I give myself permission to be me, nobody else can do that. And no one can validate it. It's my job as a sovereign human being. I give myself permission to have a life that I'm here to have.
I gotta know where this came from, man, because you've got these beliefs I'm entertaining the thought. Who does that? I ask somebody for advice, he gives me advice, and then I entertain it. And then
I entertained his thought, and it didn't empower me. So I guess where I got it from was I've made so many darn mistakes in school and had, in growing up.
Now, I want to hear about your mistakes. I know I'm cutting you off. We got to take one more break. You're watching Greatness Quest on the Whatever It Takes Network. We'll see you in a second. right, you're back. I'm Trevor Crane. This is Jeffrey Slater. You're watching Greatness Quest on the Whatever It Takes Network, and he was about just this close to tell us he made a mistake. Because all I've heard is how he asked for advice, and some really respected friend of his said, "Don't do it." And Jeff, tell me, where did you get this belief that you can do anything you want to do, even if people tell you you can't, even people you respect?
I got the belief from, I guess I would say, here's where it came from my father. I got the belief from my father because I watched him really struggle, and I watched him go from struggle to having what he wants in his life.
Yeah, but when did you just notice right there? What do you remember? What was that?
I remember the time that I went to Japan with my dad, and I used to love these samurai swords, the ones that were in the gift shops. And I said, I always wanted these samurai swords. I wanted to buy one of these samurai swords. And in the gift shops, there's these cheap samurai swords. And then we went to the museums, and there were these extraordinary samurai swords that were priceless. And he pulled me aside and he goes, "Do you know the difference, son, between the samurai swords in the museums and the samurai swords in the gift shops that you like?" And I go, "Yeah, well, one is worth a lot of money and the other one isn't." He goes, No, son. He says, "The difference is the ones in the museums that are priceless have been pounded over and over and over and pounded over and over and over again to become sharp and unbreakable." So and he goes, that's the difference of somebody who's successful, is they're willing to get pounded, like make mistakes. And as I grew up as a kid, I grew up in this. I think the school system needs an update, but I was different. I always felt different than in the school system. And the school system, I always was bumping up against it. I never felt like it was honoring my strengths. It was always like I was trying to jam myself into a circle, trying to jam myself into a square. And because of that, the school system would rank me with getting C's, C-level grades and D's, things like that. Like I was just horrible in school. I
didn't know you're a C and D student. That's awesome.
Yeah, but I did. But the courses I did really well in were public speaking, contract negotiation. I got A's, writing. Like I did good in those. Wow. But the stuff I didn't do well in, I would have hired somebody. So the thing is I got used to I got to learn to survive somebody saying, D, C, and I realized that it didn't define who I was. So the external world doesn't define me. I define myself, and I bring it forth into the world. And so the world can tell me all day long that it's not going to work. But if I feel and know it in my heart that it's going to work, I'll just keep persevering the same way my father persevered, and I'll keep getting the pounding until finally I become sharp, and then suddenly I'm carving my own path. And that's what I've discovered is the way to get successful.
That's awesome, brother. Now, here I'm still in probing, so I like the C and D. I knew I'd learn something about you. That's amazing. Give me a professional example about when you made the decision you're going to go in a direction and it didn't work out.
For example, I thought that there was supposed to be this sure thing development deal. It was in Florida, and it was supposed to be like a sure thing. And what happened was I invested a lot of money in this particular project, thinking it was going to be a sure thing, work out. And the banks pulled the loan on the project. Against what they said. They pulled the loan, and then I had money, and the banks the bank started going after me, and the construction project was only halfway done, and I couldn't rent it out. It was a mess. It was a sure thing. And what I've learned is I don't remember. I'm not the best at the years. It was at least.
Was this during like real estate meltdown?
Real estate time. This is real estate time.
Okay, got it.
So
this was during the boom, and as things started to shift, you were caught there with your pants down type of thing. Got it.
Exactly. And what I learned was that if I can't accept things going wrong, I also can't accept them going right. So now before I do anything, I have to look at the full spectrum of the degree it can go wrong, so I can accept the degree to go right. I wasn't willing to look at the full degree it could go wrong. And that was a lesson for me. I've also learned that wealth is built through base hits, not home runs. So I was trying to probably hit a home run and could have been a base hit instead.
I heard that I read Donald Trump, one of Donald Trump's books years ago, about how he said he never goes into a deal without looking at the worst case scenario and saying, can I live with that worst case scenario? And if you can live with that worst case scenario, because let's just assume that's going to happen, that's part of his decision making, and everything's okay and you can still survive and you're still going to be okay, then he's all right to do the deal. But if you can't live with the worst case scenario, don't do it. And that's how he looked at it.
He actually has attorneys that he hires to just be the total devil's advocate on his side.
Really?
100%. Their job is to piss him off almost.
Right.
So,
by the way, when Jeff talks about sharing the stage with, he mentioned Tony. He's talking Tony Robbins. When we're talking about Trump, this is Donald Trump or Richard Branson. You mentioned that earlier, kind of flippantly, but you've shared the stage with these guys. These are the world leaders you're talking about, and just a few names of like the success principles that you're sharing. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong.
Oh yeah, that was my goal, to go share the stages with these guys and be in front of audiences and sharing the message. And I've also learned through this is no one's above or below anybody. We're all doing the best we can. And these people are just doing the best they can, and they happen to be skilled at certain things. Doesn't make them better. Right. It just makes them have certain skill sets. And the other thing I've also learned is that I used to think I had a message. Now I've realized that my life and I am the message. So I don't have a message anymore. My life and who I am is my message. And that was a big distinction. I had to go deliver a message in order to discover that my life is the message and what I embody is my message.
So I just thought of two things. Did I tell you I met Richard Branson?
No, that's cool. He's a nice guy. He's right down to earth.
He was really super cool, and guess what we talked about when I met him?
What's that?
You.
Really? Cool.
This was so crazy. I had decided that I was going to go ahead and change my circle of influence, and I wanted to hang out with successful people. So for several months, I was really focused on this, and I called up everybody I knew who made good money and I thought was a success. And I was taking a trip from state to state. I was in New Jersey, and I was on my way to Vegas or something. And I missed a flight, and there are all these challenges, and I got derailed, and I was in an airport, and they put me up in first class, and then while I was waiting, they put me in the VIP suite that had just opened that day, and Richard Branson came in and sat down next to me in the chair and just started and just was the coolest guy, and we had a conversation, and I was talking to him that you and your partner had met him and it was cool. I got a picture with him, and we talked to him about projects and stuff. He was really awesome, which was neat to see.
Branson is wealthy not just outside but inside, and CEOs, I work with them to make sure they have wealth in both areas, because I've learned that oftentimes people will just build their companies and forget who they are and why they even started in the first place. And so we bring it back to why they started their company or their empire, their enterprise in the first place.
Why do you think then you've met with a lot of CEOs, right? A lot of heads of countries, and you've done more than share a few conversations with Richard Branson. What is it? Why do people start things? What is it inside of an entrepreneur and these guys and gals that you've met? What is it? What do they remember? What do you help them remember?
Well, I just ask the questions. They seem to discover the answers they've always had inside of them. I don't tell them anything that they don't know, but I will challenge them in their belief structures in order to have them see who they are and what they're here to do. But you can't giving advice to people who hear all the advice in the world is one thing, but asking questions to have them see something different. So I might ask. So they might want to ask themselves, why did they originally do this? What's missing in their life? How could they express their values in the company more effectively? What is their relationship to success? What is success defined to them? How do they lose track of what that definition is? Do they feel overworked? Just the questions will spark the interest in, like Tony Robbins says, the level of questions you ask is directly proportional to the life that you'll get.
I have another question. I hadn't planned on this, but I just watched as you're thinking. Right? We're making eye contact with each other through Skype.
Yeah.
But as I see you start to process and think about what you're going to say, what are you looking to, man? Because I watch your eyes like you're what, and I know that this is how you interact with, when you've been my business consultant and you've been in my ear and helping me out, that sometimes you turn away and you look and you're not paying. It's like you lose me. But what are you thinking? What are you searching for? Like, what is going on there?
It's a good question. I do have. So we were taught in school to focus. Focus. The challenge with focus, if you're always focused, is you miss things. The peripheral, beyond focus, is where most of the information lies. They teach us to focus in school to miss out on all this information that lies in the peripheral. And sometimes I have to go peripheral because they tried to study what made Einstein so smart, and they tried to pull apart his brain. And what they did was they pulled apart his brain, thinking that it was the folds of his brain, but they couldn't figure out the source of it. That's because information is everywhere. The question is, are we tapped into it or not? And sometimes we need to go peripheral to grab the information necessary in order to communicate that. So when you ask me a good question, I source the information that is within myself, but I was also in this what we call the unified field, which I talk about in some of my other work. But it's a long conversation. So the thing to challenge is we as human beings were taught to focus, and that's useful. But also, there's a whole lot of information lying in the peripheral, which is that peripheral vision that we have.
I've heard that, and I got to actually look into that again. So, brother, I want to make sure I want to respect your time today. We need to wrap things up, and I asked if there was a really cool gift that you could give our viewers, and make sure I got this right. It's the 7 Steps to Life and Business Revolution. Is that what it is?
Yeah, absolutely. And so go enjoy it. There's 7 videos that'll teach you about packaging, positioning, building a business, having the life you want, and maintaining that conscious balance between consciousness and building an enterprise. Maintaining that balance, because that midpoint is where it's at. And enjoy it. And on my website, I have thousands of documentaries as well, and about challenging current frameworks to have a different kind of life. So I'll leave you with make sure that when you build your enterprise, you take care of the planet, your people, you have prosperity, and you have perseverance, and you really go out there and you hit that, and make sure it's incorporated into your business.
Love it, my friend. Thank you so much. You can find Jeffrey Slater at jeffreyslater.com. And
yeah, R-E-Y-S-L-A-Y-T-E-R. There's a Y in there. S-L-A-Y-T-E-R.
S-L-A-Y-T-E-R. We'll put that on the screen so everyone can see it. And then if you go to greatnessquest.com/Jeffrey Slater, Jefffery Slater, S-L-A-Y-T-E-R. Did I mess it up?
It's R-E-Y, but it's all good. I bought the domain. It's all good. You know what? I am the worst speller in the world, and I can still be successful, and so can we all.
Jeffrey. And I made a mistake. All right, well, hey, I just made a mistake. You know what? I just need to be pounded more.
You got it. So, thanks, Trevor. It was a pleasure, and everyone listening, thank you for taking the time.
All right, we'll see you next week on Greatness Quest. I'm Trevor Crane, Jeffrey Slater, and can't wait to see you.